This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
A very good morning. You are watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra. Well, this is the countdown. The new financial year kicks in today, the 1st of April. And tomorrow, 2nd of April, is the day when reciprocal tariffs are likely to kick in. Will they or won't they? That is something that we will be tracking for you today and all week long as well. But that's not all. There is a fresh announcement of all countries importing oil from Russia to further be hit by sanctions. Well, let's see how markets respond to that after the Eid holiday yesterday, after 3 days of market closing. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you the headlines this Tuesday morning. And there's a gold rush of 2025. Trump's tariffs have pushed the yellow metal beyond the $3,100 per ounce, now trading at $3,128. Reciprocal tariffs set to kick in from tomorrow, the 2nd of April. Meanwhile, fresh announcement on additional tariffs up to 50% on countries importing oil from Russia. Nasdaq is down 5% in the last 5 trading days. And as the countdown to Trump tariffs kicks in, Indian stock market braces for impact after a 3-day market holiday. And the strong US dollar has now pushed up India's external debt over 10.7% to $718 billion. And after the government decided to hike its stake in VODA-IDEA by converting its dues to equity, CITI now sees a 76% upside in the VODA-IDEA stock, looking at a target price of 12 rupees apiece. And it's not just Singapore-based Temasek, it's also US and UAE funds which are looking to take a big bite into Haldirams. We'll tell you all about it on the show. Road Transport and Highway Minister Nitin Gadkari says that low battery prices will make India the EV leader of the world by 2030. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is all set to visit London for trade talks beginning next week from April 8th to April 10th. And there's a surge in new property registrations in Mumbai. New registrations rise 10% in the month of March. Let's begin with the top story that we're tracking for you this morning. Gold prices have soared past the $3,100 per ounce on Monday, setting a new all-time high as fears over inflation triggered by US tariffs sent investors rushing to the safe haven metal. Spot gold surged to $3,117 per ounce in morning trade after hitting an intraday of $3,128 earlier. This rally puts gold on track for its strongest quarterly gain since 1986. Take a look.
Gold prices surged above $3,100 per ounce on Monday to a record high. That as bullion continued a rally that's already seen the metal gain around 18% so far this year. Worries about potential US tariffs set the safe haven asset up for its strongest quarter since 1986. Spot gold jumped to more than $3,117 per ounce in morning trade, having hit a record of $3,128 earlier. Bullion rose more than 27% last year on several bullish factors, including a favourable monetary policy backdrop, as well as robust central bank buying that sent investors towards the safe haven asset. Trump is expected to announce reciprocal tariffs on April the 2nd, while automobile tariffs will take effect on April the 3rd.
All right, so all set for those April 2nd and April 3rd deadlines offered by Trump. Meanwhile, Wall Street closed a rough quarter with both the S&P 500 and Nasdaq logging their worst performances since 2022. Well, uncertainty over Trump administration's economic agenda has sent shockwaves through U.S. equity markets, marking the first quarter of 2025 a rough one for investors. Take a look.
Wall Street's main indexes mostly shrugged off tariff uncertainty on Monday, with the Dow closing up 1%, the S&P 500 adding more than 0.5%, and the Nasdaq ticking down marginally. Still, Monday marked the worst quarterly performances for the S&P 500 and Nasdaq since 2022. The S&P slumped 4.6% in the first quarter, while the Nasdaq plummeted 10.5%. The Dow wasn't immune, slipping 1.3%. Many of the Magnificent Seven names also suffered steep quarterly losses, with two of the biggest losers for that period being Tesla, down almost 36%, and Nvidia, which dropped nearly 20%. Despite Monday's bounce back in equities, a lack of clarity around President Trump's economic policies means there's likely more volatility to come, said Marianne Bartels, chief investment strategist at Sanctuary Wealth.
So today we had a very, very choppy market, very volatile, where we were testing the lows, and the market actually made a new low, both on the S&P and Nasdaq. But we seem to be trying to rally off of these lows, which to us means that we're in a testing process. Testing processes of lows can actually take weeks or months. So we're in the early stages, I think, of trying to make a bottom in the equity markets, but we still need a little bit more clarity on the tariff front.
Trump on Sunday said that this week's tariff announcement will include duties on all nations. He has already imposed tariffs on aluminum, steel, and autos, along with increased tariffs on goods from China. Monday's stock moves included shares of drug makers, which slid after reports that the FDA's top vaccine official had been forced to resign. Moderna dropped nearly 9%, while gene therapy companies Taysha Gene Therapies and Solid Biosciences fell 28% and more than 14%, respectively. In deal news, shares of rocket companies fell more than 7% after the mortgage lender said it agreed to a $9.4 billion acquisition of mortgage servicer Mr. Cooper Group, whose shares rose about 14.5%.
And well, it's not just the US markets, even European markets stumbled yesterday as investors pulled back from riskier bets after US President Donald Trump's tariff warning sent shockwaves through global trade. Trump's latest move targeting all countries has intensified fears of a global economic slowdown. Investors are now bracing for retaliation with reciprocal tariffs from US trading partners set to take effect from tomorrow, April the 2nd. Take a look.
Markets fell sharply on Monday and gold surged to another new record. European shares hit a two-month low as cautious investors fled risky bets after Donald Trump said that tariffs would target all countries. Investors are bracing for reciprocal tariffs on US trading partners on April the 2nd. Trump has called it Liberation Day for the US economy. The aggressive tariff scenario prompted Goldman Sachs to lower its US and Euro area GDP forecast and add an additional quarter-point rate cut to its forecast for both the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank. But in recent weeks, there's been a sense among some investors that a more independent, less US-reliant Europe is taking shape, and some see opportunities in a long-shunned region that go beyond just buying up defence shares. Investors say there is reason for caution, since massive German spending on defence and infrastructure will take time to be felt. But Brussels' plan to mobilise up to $866 billion for rearmament and German fiscal expansion mean defence stocks remain fertile ground for investors. European aerospace and defence stocks have gained 33% this year, and valuation multiples have topped those of US peers, reaching levels associated with luxury or tech.
Meanwhile, Indian stock markets that remain of Eid will open today to a flurry of news from fresh tariff threats on Russian oil importing nations, which include China and India on the top list. On the receiving end, energy stocks are likely to be in focus, to a knockdown effect on the Nasdaq crash likely to wane on Indian IT stocks. Well, markets will open in just a few minutes from now, and we will bring you the mood of the market. But what tools does the government of India have in its arsenal to counter US tariffs, and just how well are trade negotiations with the US progressing? Well, I spoke to Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal on Saturday at the News 9 Global Summit to get a sense. The minister said his lips are sealed, but India's flight to growth is in safe hands of its pilot and the commander. Listen in.
My lips are sealed.
Sir, please unseal them for us.
Trade negotiations are a very complex affair. There's a lot of back and forth. You are always calibrating and recalibrating positions. You are assessing a balance between your priorities and what the other person or other country desires to have. You are cognizant of your sensitivities and respectful of each other's sensitivities. So one has to be very pragmatic, very practical, very forward-looking when you're negotiating free trade agreements. And I have been badgered by the press the last few days. But I suspect you wouldn't have got anything so far out of me. And neither are you going to get anything until any negotiation gets completed. It's best that one does not discuss that, and certainly not in public, because more often than not, rather than helping, it can only harm the discussions. Misrepresentations can occur. Misreporting is certainly a given, with due respect to the friends from the media. Sensationalism and headline grabbing will then take over the actual negotiations. Then the negotiations will not be in our room for the best interests of everybody, but negotiations will be driven by like you have the media trial, we'll have media negotiations going on.
So we'll not push you on the negotiation, sir, but the first tranche, fall of 2025, is what we know. Are we on track, sir, after Mr. Lynch has concluded the first round of talks here in India? Does it seem to be that India and US are on track to at least conclude the first tranche of an agreement by fall of 2025?
We are always on track. And our effort is that the train should never get derailed. Just like in a aircraft, there may be occasional turbulence when the pilot tells you to strap your seatbelt. And then after a few moments, it goes away and you're back to normal and you can even use the restroom.
Yes, sir. I know you're talking about the commander and the pilot. We know the commander is completely in control, and so is the pilot in this case.
If I may complete, and ultimately, the commander takes you down to a safe landing, and then you have many more safe and successful travels to do, as we all do.
Well, let's hear it for the commander and the pilot. Well, of course, the pilot is here with us. The commander was here with us yesterday. But, so we'll be happy to...
I can assure you the commander is completely in command. He knows what is best for India. And you have seen the astute leadership he has demonstrated over the last many years, over a decade now, more particularly in the current discussions. So you can rest assured that the country is in very safe hands.
All right, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal there, exclusively in conversation at the News 9 Global Summit that concluded on Saturday. Meanwhile, let's move on to other news coming in from the Ministry of Finance. Well, India's external debt has increased by 10.7% to $717.9 billion at the end of December 2024. This has gone up from the $648.7 billion mark in December 2023. This as per data released by the Finance Ministry. Now, on a quarter-on-quarter basis, there is a 0.7% increase in external debt from the level of to 712.7 billion at the end of September 2024. All this according to India's quarterly external debt report released by the Ministry of Finance. The external debt to GDP ratio stood at 19.1% at the end of December 2024. This against 19% in the quarter ending September 2020. Effect is due to the appreciation of the US dollar vis-a-vis the rupee and other major currencies such as the yen, the euro and special drawing rights amounting to $12.7 billion during the quarter ended December 2024. Now, excluding the valuation effect, the increase in external debt would have been $17.9 billion on a quarter-on-quarter against $5.2 billion at the end of December 2024 over September 2024. Now, US dollar denominated debt remained the largest component of India's external debt with a share of as high as 55% in end December 2024, followed by Indian rupee at about 30.6% and then the Japanese yen, SDR and euro at just about 3%. This again as per the Ministry of Finance. The outstanding external debt of the central government declined while that of non-government sector increased at December end 2024 over its level at September end 2024. Now, loans were the largest component of external debt with a share of 33.6%, followed by currency and deposits at 23.1%, trade credit and advances at almost 19%, and debt securities at about 17%. Meanwhile, CITI Research has reiterated its buy and high risk rating on VODA-IDEA, citing the government's move to raise its stake in the debt-laden telecom operator to 48.99% as a key balance sheet boost, while setting a target price of 12 rupees per share. Now, this is a 76% upside from the stock's last close on Friday at 6 rupees 80 paisa apiece. Now, timely support by the government will offer cash flow relief to the telco, CITI said, on VODA-IDEA's dues to equity conversion by the government. Well, let's recap a little. The government's decision to convert almost 37,000 crore rupees worth of dues to VODA-IDEA into equity is a major and timely display of support that will offer significant cash flow relief to the telco in the next 3 years and help it complete its long-delayed bank debt raise. This as per a CITI report on Monday. And shifting gears now, Haldirams snack food has confirmed selling its stake to 2 new investors. These include UAE-based International Holding Company and US-based Alpha Wave Global. The announcement comes just a day after Haldiram confirmed acquisition of a minority stake by Singapore-based global investment firm Temasek. The details of all the deals were not disclosed, but reports indicate Temasek has acquired a 10% stake in Haldirams Snacks. This strategic move further strengthens Haldiram's financial position as it accelerates its global expansion plans, particularly in the US as well as now in the Middle East. Now, according to a PTI report, IHC and Alpha Wave are collectively acquiring a minority stake of about 6% in Haldirams Snacks at a valuation of $10 billion, which converts to about 85,000 crore rupees of valuation. This is considered to be the largest for the Indian packaged food industry. Now, additionally, Alpha Wave is a global investment company that focuses on 3 main verticals: private equity, private credit, and public markets, while UAE-based IHC is one of the world's largest investment companies. With these investments, Haldirams says it will broaden its footprint in global markets like the US and UAE, which demonstrate growing demand for Indian cuisine and snacks, and these will be primarily the focus areas for the company's global expansion strategy. Now, PwC investment banking team acted as advisor to the transaction, and Cathan & Company acted as the legal advisor. Several PE firms, including Blackstone, Alpha Wave, and Bain Capital-led consortiums, were in the race to pick up stake in Haldirams Snack Foods. Haldirams Snack Foods is a combined business of the Haldiram family based out of both Delhi and Nagpur. Earlier, the NCLT, or the National Company Law Tribunal, had approved the process of the merger of the 2 sides, and other regulatory approvals are still awaited. Established in 1937 as a retail sweets and namkeen shop in Bikaner in Rajasthan by Ganga Bhishan Agarwal, Haldiram products are sold in over 80 countries. Well, time for a short break right here on News 9. But coming up on the other side, we'll bring you a mood check of markets. So stay tuned. You are watching the Morning Brief at 9.
What does it take to be the greatest in the world? There is one thing which truly sets you apart. Your inner strength. Sodium DMD Reebok, true inner strength.
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people. Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest. Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Welcome back. You are watching Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you the mood of the Indian stock markets as they open after a 3-day break. Remember, yesterday being Monday and Eid, markets were closed, but the mood of the market not looking good at all, and it seems that there is a knock-on effect of what is happening in the US, which is weighing heavily on India's IT stocks this morning. In addition to that, of course, there are fresh announcements by Donald Trump on additional tariffs to as high as 50% on countries that import Russian oil. So that is something that is weighing down heavily on India's energy stocks as well. As markets opened just a few minutes back, well, Nifty 50 and Sensex are both down over 0.4 percentage point. There is a little bit of ease when it comes to small caps and mid caps this morning. Small caps are pretty much flat from their closing on Friday, and so seems to be the case with India's mid cap as well. Volatility, as expected, has gone up by about 7%, and all of this happening in the wake of fresh tariff announcements happening in the US. So this is the mood of the market this morning as we speak. Sensex, Nifty taking a little bit of a beating. Let's quickly bring up the Nifty 50 heat map and try and make sense of what is really happening when it comes to sectors as well as specific stocks which are in action this morning. Let's pull up the Nifty 50 heat map. Well, as I can see, there is a sea of red in the IT stocks as expected. Infosys is down about 2.5%. TCS is also down about 1.5%. HCL Tech is taking a beating, down about 1%. And as expected, there is, of course, there is this wave of red even in energy stocks, with Reliance Industries now trading as expected down about 0.8%. So this is the mood of the market as we bring you a mood check early morning on Tuesday. Remember, it's been just 5 minutes since the markets have opened and it could swing in any direction. I think markets are awaiting fresh cues from the US. Will reciprocal tariffs kick in from tomorrow and the tariffs on auto sector kick in from April 3rd? That is something which is keeping not just Indian markets but even global markets on edge. And moving to other stories that we are tracking for you this morning, Union Minister for Road and Transport and Highways Nitin Gadkari said reduction in the cost of lithium-ion batteries would significantly lower the price of electric vehicles, making them more affordable for consumers. Nitin Gadkari asserted the ongoing advancements in battery tech were key to India's transition to sustainable transport. The rapid growth of India's automobile sector, according to the minister, has surpassed Japan to become the third largest globally since 2014. While by 2030, the minister expects India will be the world's leader in electric vehicle production, significantly impacting the global auto market. Gadkari has credited the sharp decline in lithium-ion battery prices, which are now down to about $100 per kilowatt hour, down from about $250 per kilowatt hour, for making EVs more affordable and bringing them closer to price parity with traditional fuel-powered vehicles. The minister also reiterated the importance of battery-operated vehicles for eco-friendly and cost-effective transportation solutions. The minister said he is championing the idea of converting rice straw into biofuel, which will provide an alternative fuel and another source of income for India's farmers. All these gaining momentum towards India's quest to have 30% of its private vehicles to be electric by the year 2030. And moving on to another story coming in late last night, issues related to the proposed free trade agreement and bilateral investment treaty between India and the UK are expected to figure during a 3-day visit of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to London next week from April 8th to April 10th. This as per official sources to PTI. The minister will attend a host of meetings, including the India-United Kingdom Economic and Financial Dialogue in London. Nirmala Sitharaman is likely to hold a bilateral meeting with UK's Chancellor of Exchequer Rachel Reeves and other British ministers. Through negotiations for a free trade agreement, well, these fall under the domain of the Union Commerce Ministry. Issues like the investment treaty and norms related to financial services come under the Finance Ministry. Now, in the proposed trade pact between New Delhi and London, these issues are still not resolved. On Feb 24th, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal and UK Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Jonathan Reynolds, announced the resumption of negotiations for the proposed FTA between the two countries. India and UK negotiations are resuming, remember, after a gap of over 8 months. The talks were launched on Jan 13th, 2022, and so far 14 rounds of the talks have been completed. The two countries are actively negotiating on 3 different fronts. First up is the Free Trade Agreement, followed by the Bilateral Investment Treaty or BIT, and then the Double Contribution Convention Agreement. India wants foreign firms to exhaust all local judicial remedies before restoring to international arbitration, but its partners resist due to the lengthy nature of Indian judicial proceedings. The model BIT text of India requires investors to resolve disputes through India's legal system for at least 5 years before seeking international arbitration. Now, on the other hand, the UK is seeing a significant cut in import duties on goods like Scotch whisky, electric vehicles, lamb meat, chocolates, and certain confectionery items. Britain is also looking for more opportunities for UK services in Indian markets in segments like telecommunications, legal and financial services, including but not limiting to banking and insurance. Now, the BIT or the bilateral trade between India and the UK stood at over $21 billion in 2023-24. And also remember, Britain is the 6th largest investor in India. And before we slip into a break, let's take a look at the global headlines that we are tracking for you this Tuesday morning. Kremlin remains open to talks with US President Donald Trump after he threatens tariffs on Russian oil, criticizes Putin and Zelensky, and calls for new elections in Ukraine amid ongoing war concerns. And you're US President Donald Trump warns Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky of big problems if he backs out of crucial rare earth minerals deal, highlighting tensions in Ukraine's ongoing negotiations with the US over economic agreements. Staying with the US, President Donald Trump threatens Iran with bombing and secondary tariffs if no agreement is reached over nuclear program, escalating tensions and raising fears of intensified conflict. Donald Trump also confirms TikTok deal will be reached before the Saturday deadline, with ByteDance facing pressure to find a non-Chinese buyer or face a US ban over national security concerns. Top Trump advisor and Tesla CEO Elon Musk donates million-dollar checks to Wisconsin voters in support of conservative candidates, sparking controversy ahead of state Supreme Court election. Moving to Asia, South Korea, China and Japan hold first economic dialogue in 5 years, aiming to boost regional trade amid concerns over US President Donald Trump's tariffs on imports. Myanmar earthquake death toll surpasses 2,000 as rescue efforts slow. National mourning declared. Tremors felt across Southeast Asia, including China, Thailand, Vietnam, as well as India. And NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore thank Trump and Elon Musk after 9 days, but say Boeing and NASA both had a role in the mission setbacks. French far-right leader Marine Le Pen, convicted of embezzlement, banned from public office for 5 years, ruling her out for France's 2027 presidential race unless she wins appeal. These stories and more on the other side. You are watching Morning Brief at 9.
Every brand tells a story, and they are the storytellers, the Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
Light, camera and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News 9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News 9's pick of the week, don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News 9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
We made history for a reason tonight.
Will it change the shape of American foreign policy? Violence has erupted in Manipur once again. How can we pass judgment, sir, before any inquiry that, they were volunteers or militants, sir?
Welcome back. You You are watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's look at the headlines that we are tracking for you and the top stories that we are bringing you this Tuesday morning. Let's begin with what's happening between Russia and the US. Well, tensions between Moscow and Washington remain high as the Kremlin announced it is still working with the US on a potential peace settlement over Ukraine. This comes after US President Donald Trump expressed his frustration, saying he was pissed off with Vladimir Putin and threatening tariffs. Remember, Trump warned of secondary tariffs of 25% to 50% on buyers of Russian oil if he believes Moscow is hindering efforts to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Take a look.
The Kremlin said on Monday Vladimir Putin remained open to contacts with US President Donald Trump, after Trump said on Sunday he was pissed off with the Russian president. Trump threatened to impose secondary tariffs of 25 to 50% on buyers of Russian oil if he felt Moscow was blocking his efforts to end the war in Ukraine. He told NBC News he was angry after Putin last week criticized the credibility of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's leadership. Trump has adopted a more conciliatory stance towards Russia that has worried Western allies, as he tries to end what he calls a ridiculous war, which began when Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. He himself has called for new elections in Ukraine and denounced Zelensky as a dictator. Trump criticized him again on Sunday over a critical minerals deal that US officials have been pushing Kyiv to accept. A summary of the draft suggests the US is demanding all Ukraine's natural resources income for years. He has said Kyiv's lawyers need to review it.
And I think Zelensky, by the way, I see he's trying to back out of the rare earth deal. And if he does that, he's got some problems, big problems. We made a deal on rare earth. And now he's saying, well, you know, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member.
Asked about Trump's anger with Putin, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Moscow continued to work with Washington, and a call between Trump and Putin could be set up at short notice if necessary. Trump had later repeated that he was disappointed with Putin, but added, "I think we are making progress step by step." He said he could impose new trade measures on Russia within a month. Russia has called numerous Western sanctions and restrictions illegal and designed for the West to seize economic advantage in its rivalry with Russia.
Well, it's not just tensions between Russia and US. Tensions between the US and Iran have also escalated as President Donald Trump issued a stark threat, warning of bombing and secondary tariffs if Tehran fails to reach an agreement with the US over its nuclear program. In a telephone interview with NBC News, Trump declared that if a deal is not made, severe actions would be taken against Iran. Take a look.
U.S. President Donald Trump threatened Iran on Sunday with bombing and also with what he called secondary tariffs if Tehran did not come to a new agreement with Washington over its nuclear program. In a telephone interview with NBC News, Trump said, quote, "If they don't make a deal, there will be bombing. It will be bombing, the likes of which they have never seen before." But he also suggested another outcome could be tariffs on countries that imported Iranian oil in an effort to further pressure Iran for concessions. In 2015, Iran signed a deal with the U.S. and other Western powers, accepting curbs and inspections on its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
In his first term in office, Trump pulled out of that deal and ratcheted up trade barriers. In response, Tehran ramped up its uranium enrichment beyond the limits of the 2015 accord. Since returning to office, the Trump administration reached out to Tehran in a letter about coming to a new agreement. Iran sent a response through Oman saying it would not engage in direct talks while under U.S. tariff pressure and military threats.
On Sunday,
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said the U.S. government had breached the earlier agreement and needed to, quote, create trust. Tehran says its nuclear program is wholly for civilian energy purposes.
And staying on with more news coming from the US, US President Donald Trump announced that a deal to sell TikTok The short video app used by millions of Americans would be reached before the Saturday deadline. Remember, the app owned by Chinese company ByteDance was given the deadline back in January to find a non-Chinese buyer or face a US ban over national security concerns. More details in this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump says a TikTok deal will happen before a deadline this Saturday. The app is owned by Chinese company ByteDance, and Trump set the deadline back in January for it to find a non-Chinese buyer or face a U.S. ban on national security grounds. Trump told reporters on Air Force One on Sunday that interest in TikTok was high.
We have a lot of potential buyers. There's tremendous interest in TikTok. The decision is going to be my decision, as you know, through Congress. They've given me the power to make the decision. I'd like to see TikTok remain alive.
TikTok did not immediately comment. Washington says TikTok's ownership by ByteDance makes it beholden to the Chinese government, and that Beijing could use the app to conduct influence operations against the United States and collect data on Americans. Reuters reported on Friday that private equity firm Blackstone is evaluating making a small minority investment in TikTok's U.S. operations, according to sources. Trump previously said he was willing to extend the April 5th deadline if an agreement over the social media app was not reached. TikTok's future has been up in the air since a 2024 law required ByteDance to divest TikTok by January 19th. The White House has been involved to an unprecedented level in the closely watched deal talks, effectively playing the role of an investment bank.
And well, Trump advisor and Tesla CEO Elon Musk made headlines last week by handing out million-dollar checks to 2 voters in Wisconsin, offering smaller payments to others who help elect a conservative candidate to the state's top court in an upcoming election. Remember, Musk has previously used similar stunts to show support for President Donald Trump during the 2024 presidential election, sparking both praise and criticism for his involvement in the political process. Take a look.
Top Trump advisor and Tesla CEO Elon Musk gave away million-dollar checks to 2 Wisconsin voters Sunday, ahead of a vote that could flip control of the state's Supreme Court. Musk used similar stunts during the 2024 presidential election to support Trump. On Sunday, he said it was meant to draw media attention to the race, which currently has liberal Susan Crawford edging ahead of conservative judge Brad Schimmel for an open seat.
Somewhat inevitably, when I do these things, the sort of legacy media to kind of lose their minds, and then they'll run it on every news channel.
The April 1st election will decide where the state's top court sits on abortion rights, labor rights, and possibly election rules. While technically nonpartisan, the race is also seen as an early referendum on Trump. The election is already the most expensive judicial race in U.S. history. As of last week, a total of $81 million has been spent on the race, according to New York University's Brennan Center for Justice. More than a fifth of that amount was spent by groups affiliated with Musk to support Schimmel, the conservative judge. Protesters lined the streets outside where Musk spoke in Green Bay Sunday. Greg Davison was among them.
I think that's just wrong that he's sticking his nose in our business here in Wisconsin. You know, he's working for Washington now. He should be out of our hair and out of the judicial system. You know, he should be messing with our Supreme Court justice election. That's wrong.
Others, like Laura Yachtfeld, felt otherwise.
Elon is doing a wonderful thing with Doge, and the amount of waste and fraud that's already been found. And with his expertise, I think he's really a good supplement to President Trump and his administration.
Efforts to block Elon Musk's giveaways, initiated by Wisconsin's Democrat Attorney General, were quashed by the court itself, according to the Washington Post. Musk spent more than $250 million to help elect Trump last year, far more than any other individual, and during the presidential race, he gave checks to voters who signed petitions supporting conservative causes. His appearance Sunday appeared to show a willingness to get involved in more local races too.
And shifting focus to Asia now, South Korea, China and Japan held their first economic dialogue in 5 years, focusing on strengthening regional trade amid concerns over US President Donald Trump's tariffs. The 3 leading Asian export powers emphasized the need for enhanced cooperation to ensure the region's economic stability and to boost free trade practices. The countries agreed to engage in comprehensive and high-level talks to address mutual economic interests and reduce trade barriers. Take a look.
China, Japan and South Korea held their first trade talks in 5 years on Sunday, amid concerns over U.S. President Donald Trump's import tariffs. The three Asian manufacturing giants agreed to, quote, closely cooperate for a comprehensive and high-level talks to improve free trade in the region. That's according to a statement released after the meeting. Trade ministers from the three nations met ahead of Trump's planned announcement on Wednesday of more tariffs in what he calls, quote, Liberation Day. Last week, Trump announced 25% import tariffs on cars and auto parts, a move that may hurt companies, especially Asian automakers, which are among the largest vehicle exporters to the U.S. Seoul, Beijing, and Tokyo are major U.S. trading partners, although they have been at loggerheads among themselves. Disagreements over issues, including territorial disputes, have prevented them from making any substantial progress on a trilateral free trade deal since starting talks in 2012. The ministers agreed to hold their next ministerial meeting in Japan.
Well, the official death toll from Myanmar's devastating earthquake has risen to over 2,000, though many believe the real number could be much higher than that. Over 3,900 people are injured, according to reports. Now, officials say over 250 people are still missing as rescue efforts begin to slow in Mandalay, one of the worst hit cities in the country. The military government has declared a week of national mourning with flags flying at half-mast until April 6th in remembrance of the victims. The powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake caused widespread destruction, leaving deep cracks in roads and bringing down buildings. The tremors were felt across neighboring countries including China, Thailand, Vietnam as well as India. In Thailand's capital Bangkok, at least 19 people lost their lives when a 30-story building under construction collapsed due to the quake's force. And NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, who returned to Earth in a SpaceX capsule 9 months after their faulty Boeing Starliner craft upended what was to be a week-long stay on the International Space Station, expressed gratitude to US President Donald Trump and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk for their role in bringing them back to the International Space Station. Now, in an interview, the astronauts emphasized the challenges of spaceflight, stating that they had prepared for contingencies despite the unexpected delay. Wilmore acknowledged that Boeing and NASA both had a role in the mission's setback, but urged against finger-pointing, instead calling for lessons to be learned for future missions. Their return on SpaceX's Dragon capsule on March 18th has also sparked political debate, with Trump claiming that the Biden administration had abandoned the astronauts and that he personally approved Musk's intervention.
We all have alluded to it. There's lessons learned. And that's like a piece of hope, right? We're not just sitting here doing the same thing over and over again, and we're learning from every mistake potentially, or maybe a decision that we've made and how we could make that better and do better the next time. When we go to the moon, we won't have an International Space Station to maybe take a stop at. We really have to get it right. And because of our mission, I think that highlighted some areas where maybe we need to work on and get it right for our fellow astronauts. I think they're encouraged by that, right? You learn and you move on and you get better. And I think that's part of the learning process. It's part of the exploration process.
I mean, we are scheduled on Wednesday to meet with Boeing leadership, the program managers, senior chief engineers, to discuss some of these issues. They want to come together with us, Sonny and myself, because we lived through this with them, and get on board with what the future looks like. And having flight crew with background in test and acquisition involved in the processes going forward to make sure that we're dotting every I and crossing every T. But still, that doesn't mean that you're guaranteed success in anything. Like we've said many times, this is a tough business.
Tough business indeed. Well, French far-right leader Marine Le Pen has been convicted of embezzlement and banned from running for public office for 5 years. The ruling delivered on Monday marks a major setback for Le Pen, effectively barring her from contesting the 2027 presidential election unless she successfully appeals the decision. Take a look.
French far-right leader Marine Le Pen left a Paris courthouse with her political career in turmoil on Monday. She was found guilty of embezzlement and left the building before being handed an immediate 5-year ban from public office. The sentence stops her from running in the 2027 presidential race unless she successfully appeals beforehand. It marks a catastrophic setback for Le Pen, the National Rally Party chief and a frontrunner in opinion polls for the 2027 contest. Le Pen, the RN and 24 party figures were accused of diverting more than $4 million of European Parliament funds to pay France-based staff. They had argued the money was used legitimately. Issuing the guilty verdict, the judge said Le Pen had been at the heart of the scheme. The defendants were not accused of pocketing the money, but rather using the funds to benefit their party. The judge said investigations in the case showed not administrative errors, but embezzlement within a system framework put in place to reduce the party's costs. The judge also gave Le Pen a 4-year prison sentence, of which 2 years are a suspended sentence and 2 which will be served under home detention, and a $100,000 fine. She is almost certain to appeal, and neither of those penalties would be applied until her appeals are exhausted. Her removal from the race is likely to intensify a debate in France over how judges police politics.
Well, that's all we have for you on the morning brief at 9. But before we go, we leave you with this excerpt from a special series now on News 9 called The Brandwalas. Catch this conversation of News 9's Krishna Kumar with Maruti Suzuki's Marketing and Sales Senior Executive Officer Partho Banerjee on this new series called The Brandwalas. Well, you can catch the full episode on the News 9 YouTube channel as well as on the News 9 Plus app. We leave you with this excerpt.
So let me ask you this, Partho, what is the one thing that is the most favorite thing about your job, that you just love about your job?
I love creating brands. I was instrumental in the Nexa, so I've been in marketing for the last 35 years. One thing is this, to find the new trends and start working on it. That is something which excites.
So that means that like every time you create a new brand, that gives you the biggest high, correct?
Sir.
And if I were to ask you the one thing that you absolutely hate about your job, the one thing that you don't like about your job, but you still have to do it.
Attending meetings.
So are you somebody who prefers to cut down on...
Lights of load actually. I don't like attending too much meetings actually. I prefer crisp meetings.
Okay, so and you're not a big fan of multiple emails as well, I'm guessing. So emails and meetings don't really work for you.
I believe if somebody needs to do something, send me a quick message, I respond immediately. I'm very quick in responding.
Okay, so it's all about messaging, so no emails and long meetings, clearly. I have to ask you this, let's talk about marketing electric vehicles to consumers. Electric vehicles, people keep saying it's the future, but at the end of the day, when you're marketing an EV product, you're asking the consumers to buy the future in the present. So what exactly is the communication marketing strategy at Maruti as far as EVs, electric vehicles are concerned?
We launched it today. It's E for me, which I did it through this unveiling today. I will tell you what is this E for me is all about. That E has got 2 E's. The inner E is the product, the Maruti ecosystem which you are creating. And the bigger E is the Mother Nature Earth. I think there has to be a purpose by which you do. One is the functionality part. but you need to give a purpose. And today's young generation, they understand what is sustainability, what is this green concept. So what we are saying, this E for me is for everyone, for every Indian customer. Contribute something to the Mother Nature Earth, but at the same time, this has got the functionality. It takes you, it has got a wonderful proposition. So why don't we marry it and make it an E for me campaign? So that's what we launched today.
Target customers, let's talk about people from Gen Z specifically speaking, the short attention span generation. But today it's not just Gen Z, everybody's attention span is extremely limited. How do you market to consumers with limited attention span, especially the Gen Z consumers?
I think that's where I think the digital marketing is playing a very major role. Because today's time to grab the attention of your customer is not so easy. You need to find very innovative ways, and the digital medium is the only way which you can do. Social media is going to play a very major role actually.
I was about to ask you that, tell us, how do you make a social media plan for your products, depending upon which model you're launching or, which geography you're launching? Talk to us about what is your social media strategy at Maruti Suzuki?
This new model, e-Vitara, we are totally launching on the digital media.
Okay.
Not on the traditional media. So that will tell you that in Maruti marketing, we are not totally changing. We are more and more going for the digital area, social media, starting from the hyperlocal, starting from the influencers. We have totally made a roadmap. Working with Google, with Meta, mastheads we are taking. So we feel that is the right way to go.
Usually, car launches, the first thing that we see is the big ad in the newspaper on the front page.
Oh, you won't see that. We have launched it, but it's not going to come with an ad in the newspaper. It will all be there into the digital media.
Parthu, this is a big shift, isn't it? Car companies launching their brand new models first on social media and then probably expanding into traditional media like print and television. That's what you're planning to do with your first electric vehicle, e-Vitara, isn't it?
That's right.
So we can see e-Vitara's TV ads and print ads after your campaign has already begun on the social media.
TV ad will start, but no print ads.
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people. Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest. Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers, the Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the